1v1 double cleanliness, hypnosis, koi, Tuan pet, Gu Yang, who has just inherited billions of assets, has become a fake heiress in the book, occupying a magpie's nest and ending in tragedy. At the beginning, he framed the true heroine and forced the villains to become blood banks, causing both the righteous and the villains to offend him repeatedly. In order to achieve the end, Gu Yang decisively divided the line with the top of the Gu family, apologized to the female protagonist, replenished the blood of the villain, and relied on himself not to die. However, Gu's father and mother said, "Anyway, Yang is the daughter of my Gu family. Gu's group also has a share of Yang. Brother Gu Pei. I only have Gu Yang as my sister. Sister, the Gu family gives you everything." Female customer Gu Jin said, "What is the Gu family? If you want 10 Gu families, my sister can get them for you." The antagonist Feng Ju said, "My blood, my people, and everything I have is yours." The wealthy families of Jincheng privately say, "The Gu family is all foolish, fake daughters are still a treasure." Until one day, the Gu family leapt to become the richest person in Jincheng and a leader in the industry. Everyone is sore. It is said that Gu Yang spends all day hanging out with mental illness, and netizens mock him. Perhaps this is also a mental illness. Big shots from all walks of life have stepped forward and said, "I am her patient." "That's our president," said the Chinese Psychiatric and Psychological Society. The entire network has exploded. Gu Yang thinks that the little blood bank is good-looking and pitiful. She wants to be good to him and compensate him more. Until one day, the little pitiful person pressed her against the wall and said, "Did you hypnotize me? My mind is full of you." Later, she found out that she had been wandering around the world and he had been waiting for her. Keywords of the novel. Sisters Invests no pop-ups, Sisters Invests complete collection download, Sisters Invests latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Fake Qianjin sister wearing a vest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Fake Qianjin sister wearing a vest. Gu Jin, why are you so malicious? You knew that Yang had hemophilia, and even a slight cut on her skin would cause her to bleed uncontrollably, so you deliberately pushed her down the stairs. The true daughter of the Gu family can only be a ripple. You don't know anything. The Gu family is not satisfied with bringing you back to enjoy your happiness. If anything happens to Yang today, you should immediately get back to your rural orphanage. Gu Yang woke up amidst the noisy scolding of women beside him, her slender eyelashes twitching slightly. When she opened her eyes, she saw the elegantly decorated and luxurious villa living room. At this moment, she was leaning against the arm of a young noblewoman, who angrily pointed at the girl at the corner of the opposite staircase with a sullen expression. Gu Yang felt his head groggy, and there was a faint pain in the back of his head and some parts of his body. He didn't understand what was happening for a moment. Suddenly, a cold sensation came from the back of the head, accompanied by a slight stabbing pain. She instinctively reached out to touch. The hand was grabbed by someone, and a gentle voice came from behind. "Don't touch it." The voice is gentle, but with a hint of coolness, like a chilly spring breeze. The noblewoman who supported her looked at her with concern on her face, and her voice softened. Yang, Dr. Ji is disinfecting your wound." After Dr. Ji bandaged Gu Yang's hemostasis, he flipped through the medicine box and said gently, "Madam Gu, you have caused Qianjin to lose too much blood and need a blood transfusion. But it is said that Ling Qianjin is the golden blood, and as you know, this blood type is special. There is no blood bank for this blood type in the hospital. A normal person wouldn't lose too much blood even if they hit their head, but Gu Yang suffers from hemophilia, and after being injured, he will bleed continuously and quickly." Madame Gu turned her head and instructed the nanny, "Go and bring Feng Ju over." Quickly, the nanny brought a thin young man wearing a white shirt. He walked out of the twilight, as if stepping out of a scroll of ink and painting, untainted by fine dust, pure and noble. He stood in front of Gu Yang with his head down, his hair slightly covering his eyes. His face was white and clean, his facial features were delicate, and his soft lips were slightly pursed, looking very beautiful and well-behaved. He looked up at Gu Yang, his eyes were clean and clear like water, yet still shrouded in a thin mist. Gu Yang used to be a psychologist, but at this moment, without any judgment, she seemed to read the silence and desperate loneliness of stagnant water behind the mist, like a dying old man who spent his entire life watching in despair. How could a young man in his prime give her such a feeling? Did she read it wrong? When Gu Yang wanted to explore further, he found that the young man had already shifted his gaze. He stood there, with bright red blood flowing from his end into her body through a blood transfusion device. Gu Yang noticed that the back of the young man's fair hands were densely covered with needle holes, which was shocking to look at. And it was also at this moment that countless scenes of using needles to prick this beautiful young man came to her mind, and a memory that did not belong to her rushed into her mind. Gu Jin, Feng Ju, living blood bank, true and false daughters, hemophilia. After using it for a while, Gu Yang finally digested a fact. She had just inherited $1 billion family fortune and now she's wearing a book. She dressed up as the fake daughter of the female lead, who had just read a book of genuine and fake 1,000 gold inscriptions. It's the kind of green tea female supporting actress who appears elegant and noble on the surface, but is actually shameless and occupies the magpie's nest. She goes crazy and dies, gets her face twisted, and ends up with a tragic ending. Also named after her, and the one who is still casually playing with her phone at the corner of the stairs is her half-sister Gu Jin, the female protagonist in the article with many beautiful and wild clothes. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Too Crazy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Too Crazy. The fair and beautiful young man standing in front of her now is the royal blood bank that the Gu family found for her. Originally suffering from hemophilia from a young age and having extremely rare golden blood, the Gu family spent a lot of effort to find an orphan with a golden blood type, namely Feng Ju. Saying to have adopted Feng Ju is actually treating him as a living blood bank. Feng Ju was placed under someone else's protection, and his status in the Gu family was not as good as that of a servant. However, he did not complain at all. Instead, he often used needles to prick him and vent his anger when he was in his original body. Gu Yang looked at Feng Ju in front of her with pity. How insane! What a well-behaved and beautiful young man. Even Grandma Rong couldn't take action, but her original body could. Moreover, she remembers that in the original book, the small blood bank Feng Ju later became a friend of the big villain. In order to help Feng Ju vent his anger, the big villain not only fueled the situation and bankrupted the Gu family, but also severed his original 10 fingers. 10 fingers connected to one's heart, it hurts to think about it. Thinking that all of this might happen to her, Gu Yang felt that she should pity herself. She was the one who died the most tragically. Let's take a look at the current situation again. Not long ago, while on a business trip, Gu Xiaoming's father unexpectedly discovered Gu Jin, who looked very similar to his deceased grandmother's photos when she was young. He sent someone to take Gu Jin's hair for paternity testing and found out that Gu Jin was his own daughter. Although Gu Xiaoming is a top-notch person, he is one who is afraid of his wife and loves his wife. He has never been a ghost outside, so naturally there are no illegitimate daughters. So Gu Jin can only be born to Gu Xiaoming and Gu Mu or Wan Shuling. Afterwards, Gu's father asked Yuan Shen and Wan Shuling to conduct a paternity test, and after the results came out, it was confirmed that Gu Jin and Yuan Shen were indeed holding the wrong child. However, they feel that Gu Jin lives in the countryside, is rude and ignorant. If he were to be named the daughter of the Gu family, it would bring shame to the Gu family. On the contrary, as the children of other families in the mouths of the elders of Jincheng's wealthy families, they are elegant, sensible, versatile, and have good grades, which gives them a long face. And compared to the newly recognized Gu Jin, they naturally lean more towards their original body, which has been raised for 17 years. After all, keeping it for so long, even raising a dog has feelings. Although Gu Jin was brought back, after enjoying the original green tea, Gu's parents agreed to retain Gu Yang's identity as the daughter of the Gu family and not disclose Gu Jin's true identity. They only raised her as an adopted daughter in the Gu family. The original identity completely snatched away Gu Jin's identity, but there was still a sense of crisis, afraid of being known by others as a fake daughter. Even if they were planning to make Gu Jin's parents hate Gu Jin, it was best to drive him away. So I designed the one just now. When he came down the stairs, he deliberately provoked Gu Jin and then pretended to be pushed down by Gu Jin in front of Ruan Shuling, falling off the stairs. In the original book, the original design did indeed arouse the disgust of Ruan Shuling and the Gu family towards Gu Jin. However, Gu Jin still slapped her face in the end, proving her innocence. Although the original person deliberately chose to frame Gu Jin through surveillance blind spots, they never expected that Gu Jin's phone would always be in recording mode. Gu Yang's eyes twirled slightly. Although she framed the female lead at the beginning of the game, treating the villain as a blood bank and offending both the righteous and villains she hasn't finished framing yet, and the blood bank hasn't been fully exploited yet. Maybe. There's still a chance to remedy it, right? Gu Yang was bowing her head and her thoughts were spinning around 1,000 times when she heard Ruan Shuling's angry and cold voice. Gu Jin, why don't you come over and apologize to your sister? She looked up and realized that Gu Jin, who was originally leaning on the handrail of the stairs, was now leaning against the sofa across from her. Gu Jin was wearing a black suspender dress, and the light was shining on her, making her skin even colder and whiter. She remained lazy in her posture, casually sliding her phone. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Why Little Green Tea Doesn't Play According to the Routine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Why Little Green Tea Doesn't Play According to the Routine. She looks very beautiful, like a fallen angel, with a hint of holiness in her allure and allure. Especially her eyes, deep and sharp, as if a vortex could swallow a soul, and as if they could see through everything. No need. I didn't push her. Upon hearing Ruan Shuling's words, Gu Jin just chuckled casually and answered concisely. You're such a rural girl, wild and difficult to train. You can't stand or sit properly, without manners. Ruan Shuling cursed softly, feeling very dissatisfied with Gu Jin. After the blood transfusion had ended, Dr. Ji, who was packing the medicine box, suddenly looked at Ruan Shuling with a gentle voice and said, Madam Gu, since Miss Gu Jin said so, there must be some evidence to prove her innocence. It's better to communicate with her more patiently. Is that right? Miss Gu Jin. Dr. Ji looked at Gu Jin and blinked at her from an angle that others couldn't see. Boss. Quickly take out the video and slap that little green tea in the face. As an outsider, Gu Yang naturally knew that Dr. Ji was named Ji Linbai, the behind-the-scenes director of Jincheng First People's Hospital, and one of Gu Jin's younger brothers. His dean will personally come to the Gu family for a consultation today, also for the sake of Gu Jin's face. Gu Yang is clear that soon the slap scenes that readers want to see are about to come. So, she stood up first and held Ruan Shuling's hand, saying, Mom, my sister didn't push me, it was me who stepped on it and fell down. She doesn't want to be slapped in the face. Ruan Shuling frowned and became even angrier towards Gu Jin. Gu Jin, look at it now. Yang Yang has already forgiven you, can't you have the appearance of being a sister? Gu Jin only looked at Gu Yang and remained silent, but Ji Linbai was about to get angry. However, he had to continue to maintain his gentle doctor image and could only curse Gu Yang little green tea from the bottom of his heart, even thinking of retreating for progress. Just as Ji Linbai was so angry that he wanted to snatch his boss's phone and play a video to hit Gu Yang's face, Gu Yang said seriously, Mom, I didn't apologize to my sister. At that time, my sister's phone was recording a video. If you don't believe me, please watch the video on her phone. Gu Jin's fingers twitched slightly, and his gaze towards Gu Yang deepened slightly, with a hint of surprise. Ji Linbai. Lying trough. Why didn't Zyaltka play the trick this time? And how does she know that the boss usually has the recording mode on his phone? Even Feng Ju, who was sitting there obediently and had a very low sense of presence, glanced at Gu Yang a few more times. Upon hearing the words, Wan Shuling looked at Gu Jin with suspicion. Seeing that Gu Yang's eyes were serious and her words were eloquent, she reluctantly believed them. She didn't go through Gu Jin's video and couldn't lower her face to apologize to the younger generation, Gu Jin. She just gave a cold warning and said, since Yang Yang has said that, I won't care anymore. But it's best for you not to think about things you shouldn't do in the future. She handed tea to Ji Linbai again to see off the guests. Before leaving, Ji Linbai quietly glared at Gu Yang, but his gaze met hers. Ji Linbai stumbled under his feet and almost fell. Gu Yang smiled slightly and said, Dr. Ji, please leave. Ji Linbai. This little green tea must have been intentional. She must be very proud now. I didn't expect her rank to be so high that she managed to resolve the crisis first. Oh, next time he will definitely help the boss beat her up. Ji Linbai left, and the nanny also took Feng Ju out. Gu Yang walked over and stopped her, saying, Aunt Li, it's so late, why do you still take Feng Ju out? She remembers that Aunt Li never brought a small blood bank in from outside just now. Li Sa looked at Gu Yang with a complicated expression and said, Miss, have you forgotten? Not long ago, young Master Feng Ju spilled your skincare products, and you punished young Master Feng Ju to sleep in the greenhouse outside. Feng Ju lowered her eyes and remained silent, looking very obedient. But it was precisely this appearance that made Gu Yangming realize it was not his own business, yet he still felt guilty. She just remembered that there was indeed such a thing. That set of skincare products was given by my original cousin. I really liked it, and before I could use it, it was spilled by a small blood bank. In a fit of anger, Qianjin asked Feng Ju to move out of the villa and live in the flower house in the yard. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. How good you are. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. How good you are. Originally, she was a favorite of the Gu family, and her parents often indulged in her decisions, and they also felt that they would teach Feng Ju a lesson. The greenhouse is mainly used by Gu Xiaoming to cultivate delicate and precious flowers, and it is spacious enough to accommodate a person to lay a floor. But there are various types of flowers, and the ceiling of the flower room may lack oxygen, making it difficult for people to live inside. Moreover, it's too much to let the floor be paved if we don't live in this good villa. Gu Yang wanted to regain her image in the small blood bank, so that his big villain friend wouldn't cut off her 10 fingers again in the future. So he held a gentle tone and said, last time we talked was just angry, Ju is still my younger brother. How can we live in the flower room? Let him go back to his room and sleep. Aunt Li. That's why young Master Feng Ju has been living in the flower room for almost a week. Miss only found out today. Feng Ju looked up at Gu Yang in surprise and said, thank you, sister. His voice is shy and gentle, like a little milk dog. How well behaved. Gu Yang couldn't help but tiptoe and touch Feng Ju's head. After touching it, her face warmed slightly and she went upstairs as if nothing had happened. Feng Ju was momentarily lost in thought. Looking at Gu Yang's back, her eyes seemed to have fleeting emerald and flowing elixir, and her hand hanging on one side couldn't help but tighten slightly. The bedrooms of Gu Yang and others are all on the second floor, with Gu Jin and Gu Yang on the left side of the stairs, and Gu Pei and Feng Ju on the right side of the stairs. After closing the door, Gu Yang looked around, at the furnishings, and at herself in the mirror. The girl in the mirror was wearing a warm white chiffon dress, with thick black hair flowing down to her waist. The skin tone is snow-white like condensed fat, and the skin texture is warm and delicate like fresh lychee. Misty eyebrows painted lightly, stretching like distant mountains and green daisies, with clear and agile eyes like water. The bridge of the nose is high and straight, and the delicate lips are pink and tender, just like the peach blossoms blooming in March. She is undoubtedly beautiful in appearance. Unlike the female protagonist's black rose-like, evil and cold temperament, the original single appearance appears gentle and elegant, and is indeed the favorite lady of the elders. Gu Yang is very satisfied with such a well-behaved and gentle appearance. Before wearing the book, she was a top-tier heiress from a wealthy family, with a gentle and ladylike appearance that was very likable to her elders. But in reality, her personality is not soft, on the contrary, she is somewhat rebellious. Otherwise, I wouldn't have avoided the arrangements given by my family and wouldn't have inherited the company as CEO. Instead, I became a psychologist based on my interests. However, what she didn't expect was that after her father left, he still left all the family assets for her to inherit, and instead did not give a single penny to his beloved illegitimate child. Now that she's dead, it's estimated that the family property has also fallen into the hands of that illegitimate child. She suspected that her death was caused by the illegitimate child. Gu Yang pondered over the things inside and outside the book all night and couldn't sleep. The morning sunshine shines into the window lattice. At the dining table, there was a fashionable young woman holding Wan Shuling's arm and talking, looking very affectionate. She glanced at Gu Jin across the table, who was playing with her phone and drinking coffee. With a charming smile, she said, "Auntie, this is your adopted daughter. I heard she's from the countryside and doesn't seem to understand the rules. I heard she pushed her cousin down the stairs last night. Is she okay now?" Thinking of last night's incident, Wan Shuling's face darkened and she said, "Yang Yang is fine. Gu Jin really only knows how to embarrass her." Fortunately, it was not announced that she is the true daughter of the Gu family. "Auntie, you see how obedient Xiaoju is. This is all under someone else's supervision, why is the difference so big?" The young woman glanced at Feng Ju sitting there obediently and shook her head at Gu Jin. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. This is unfair to sister. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. This is unfair to sister. Feng Ju and Gu Jin both raised their eyes, glanced at each other, and remained silent. Before Gu Yang could go downstairs, she heard the voice downstairs and saw the woman holding Wan Shuling's arm, which brought some information to her mind. Ruan Yan, 20 years old, is the second daughter of the Ruan family in Jincheng, and is also an entertainment industry artist. Ruan Yan was originally an illegitimate daughter, and her mother was also the mistress of Ruan heir uncle who was raised outside. A few years ago, Ruan heir uncle's original wife passed away, and the mother and daughter were only brought back to the Ruan family. The Gu family specializes in entertainment media, and Zhaofeng Entertainment, one of the 4 major entertainment companies in China, belongs to the Gu family. So when Ruan Yan debuted, she also signed with the Gu family's company. Actually, before Ruan Yan, Ruan Chu, the eldest daughter of the Ruan family's second wife, was already an artist at Zhaofeng Entertainment. The mistress and the original wife's daughter naturally have a sharp confrontation with the wheat, and the villains have a similar odor, so the relationship between the original wife and Ruan Yan is better than that with Ruan Chu. But as far as Gu Yang is concerned, she is naturally not fond of illegitimate children and daughters. "Cousin, you're here. My aunt and I just talked about you." Ruan Yan was very enthusiastic towards Gu Yang. After all, many of her resources in the entertainment industry were fought for by Gu Yang in front of her father. "Really? What did Ruan Yan's cousin and mother say to me?" Gu Yang's attitude remained gentle. But it made Ruan Yan's eyebrows furrow slightly, feeling a subtle change. The Ruan family only has 2 daughters, she and Ruan Chu. Gu Yang and Ruan Chu have a bad relationship and only treat her as a cousin, so they always call her cousin directly. Ruan Yan covered up the difference and glanced at Gu Jin, who was slowly drinking congee. "I just said that your adopted daughter was a white-eyed wolf and pushed you down the stairs. I heard that you have lost too much blood. According to me, this is murder for money. You should send her to the bureau. Gu Jin's face remained unchanged. Of course, her face remained unchanged. The adopted daughter was not talking about her, she was a legitimate heiress. Gu Yang gently stirred the century egg and lean meat congee in the bowl, and said in a puzzled tone. Cousin Wan Yen, you call me a white-eyed wolf. I'm curious. How could I push myself down the stairs? Although it was indeed her own fall. Wan Yen was slightly stunned and quickly defended himself. Me, cousin, I didn't scold you. Wan Shuling frowned and looked at Gu Yang, but she couldn't stop her from saying the next thing. You just said that the adopted daughter of the Gu family is a white-eyed wolf. Unfortunately, I am the adopted daughter of the Gu family, and Gu Jin is the true daughter of the Gu family. Wan Yen widened her eyes in surprise. The people on the dining table were all shocked, completely unaware that Gu Yang would reveal the inside story. Wan Shuling couldn't bear to scold Gu Yang, so she glared at Gu Jin and said, Yang, did Gu Jin force you to say that? You are the daughter of the Gu family. It has nothing to do with my sister. Gu Yang held Wan Shuling's hand and gazed into her eyes with clear and agile eyes. Her voice was soft and gentle. Mom, I've been thinking for a long time and feel that this is unfair to my sister. Although my sister and I were held in the wrong arms since we were born, we are all innocent. After all, I have been occupying the magpie's nest for so many years and have enjoyed the luxurious life of the Gu family and your love on behalf of my sister. Now that my sister has returned, I cannot make amends and still occupy her identity with peace of mind. Sister has suffered for so many years, we need to make good compensation for her. We cannot let her go home and still suffer injustice. Don't worry, Mom. Although I am not your biological child or father's, I will remember your nurturing kindness and still treat you as parents. I will repay you well in the future. The living room was silent, and no one expected Gu Yang to say these words in public. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Yang is really lucky. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Yang is really lucky. Feng Ju lowered her eyebrows, seemingly indifferent to anything. Gu Jin leaned back in his chair, gazing at the coffee in his hand, lost in thought. Wan Yen didn't expect to come to the Gu family and still hear such explosive news. Jincheng knew that the Gu family had adopted an adopted daughter from a rural orphanage, and some even guessed if it was Gu Xiaoming's illegitimate daughter, but they didn't expect the true daughter of the Gu family. Her gaze fell on Gu Yang, with a hint of ambiguity. So, Gu Yang, who usually has a strong sense of superiority in front of her, is the fake daughter who occupies the magpie's nest. Gu Yang is really foolish. He didn't hide anything that was unfavorable to her and even took the initiative to speak it out. When the Shui family finds out, they don't know if the marriage alliance between the two families is still possible. Wan Yen felt a faint sense of pleasure in her heart and pretended not to understand, asking, "What is cousin saying? How can I not understand?" Gu Yang sneered inwardly. The original concern does exist, as she is exposed as a fake daughter, and the attitude of some people around her will indeed change. However, at this moment, Gu Jin, who was staring at the coffee, suddenly chuckled lightly and said, "Maybe you're stupid." Wan Yan's face stiffened slightly. "What do you mean, Gu Jin? How dare a country bumpkin be so crazy? Do you really think that the true daughter of the Gu family is something? If the Gu family really values her, it's impossible not to disclose her identity." Gu Yang looked at Wan Yen in surprise, with an expression of, "You don't even know what this means. Wan Yan's cousin, you really should read more books." Even Wan Shuling gave Wan Yen a disdainful glance, feeling that what Gu Yang said was very reasonable. After all, Wan Yen dropped out of school and did not read much. Wan Yen. I am so angry that I can't speak. After listening to Gu Yang's words, Wan Shuling remained silent for a long time, feeling a sense of helplessness in her heart. Yang Yang spoke out in front of Ruan Yen, an outsider, about what she had done wrong. Even if they didn't disclose it publicly, the wealthy circles in Jincheng would still know about it. Although they consider Yang Yang as their own daughter, in the eyes of outsiders, an adopted daughter is not as good as a true daughter. Ruan Shuling glanced at Ruan Yen and the servants of the Gu family, held Gu Yang's hand, and said solemnly, "Anyway, Yang Yang, you are the daughter of our Gu family. Your father and I will handle this matter well, you don't have to worry." Gu Yang smiled and nodded at Ruan Shuling. She deliberately said the wrong thing in front of Ruan Yen, otherwise even if she told her parents to disclose her and Gu Jin's identities, they wouldn't have made it public. It's not only for protecting her, but also to maintain the dignity of the Gu family. But she is not her original self, and cannot fulfill the role of a carefree bully occupying Gu Jin's identity. Upon hearing Ruan Shuling's words, Ruan Yen tightened her hand slightly on her bag, and her eyes, covered by her long eyelashes, flashed a hint of envy. Gu Yang is really lucky. However, there are also benefits to Gu Yang's favor. Thinking about her purpose of coming to the Gu family this time, Ruan Yan's eyes flickered. She followed Gu Yang, who was walking in the garden, and casually talked to Gu Yang. "By the way, Yang Yang, I heard that my uncle's recent investment in drinking and talking about Sungama also invited Ji Yingdi." She sighed with some regret and said, "Speaking of which, I am still a fan of Ji Yingdi. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to meet him since I entered the industry." Talking About Sungama with Wine is a rural-themed variety show invested by Gu Xiaoming. The previous 2 seasons were extremely popular and even made many artists famous. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Gu Yang of Zhaxin Wozi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Gu Yang of Zhaxin Wozi. In theory, such resources are not her turn, but every time she behaves helplessly, pitifully, and regretfully in front of Gu Yang will show her sense of superiority and help her obtain this resource. For Gu Yang's charitable behavior, although Ruan Yen harbors resentment and disgust, she precisely needs it. Gu Yang was taking a walk on the cobblestone path in the garden, and the morning sun shone on her, providing her with a layer of soft light. Upon hearing Ruan Yan's words, she looked up at her with pity and said, "It's okay, Ruan Yan's cousin. It's normal not to see Ji Yingdi, after all, you don't have enough seats right now." Ruan Yen. There aren't enough coffee slots. Can Gu Yang really speak? She hinted so much, she just gave her such a heartwarming sentence. Ruan Yen felt a deep hatred in her heart, took a deep breath, took out a box of skincare products from her bag, and a smile appeared on her heavily make-up face. "By the way, cousin, I heard that the skincare product I gave you last time was damaged by a small animal. This time, I specially brought another set." Gu Yangwei frowned imperceptibly. "Little beast, are you talking about Feng Ju?" He was also a cousin of Ruan Yen, who had a good relationship with Ruan Yen. Instead, he called Ruan Yen "little brute" in front of him. Gu Yang accepted the skincare product and said, "Thank you very much, cousin Ruan Yen." Ruan Yan's eyes lit up slightly, thinking that Gu Yang had already received her gift, and that she was being soft-lipped and short-handed. She should have agreed to help her mention this matter in front of Gu Xiaoming, right? However, 1 minute passed, 2 minutes later, 10 minutes passed without Gu Yang mentioning this matter. Just as Ruan Yen couldn't help but make it clear to Gu Yang raised his hand and glanced at his watch. "First," she said step by step, "Ruan Yan's cousin, I'm going to the piano room to practice." Ruan Yen. Ruan Yen looked at Gu Yang's back and couldn't help but pinch her bag tightly, only to sneer when she left the Gu family villa. In the past, Gu Yang was the true daughter of the Gu family, so she endured it. Now, she's all fake and so arrogant. Thinking of this, Ruan Yen picked up her phone. The Gu family is a wealthy family in Jincheng, and they attach great importance to the cultivation of their children. Therefore, in addition to ensuring basic learning, Gu Yang has had to learn music, dance, calligraphy, etiquette, etc. since childhood. It is not necessary to be completely proficient, but it is necessary to be familiar with everything in order to avoid falling out of touch with other socialites. Of course, before Gu Yang wore the book, she was a daughter of a top wealthy family. She learned more from elementary school than her original self in the Gu family, but there were some differences between what she learned and what she learned from her original self. For example, in terms of musical instruments, Gu Yang mainly studied folk music, Guzheng and Guqin before going through the book, while his original study mainly focused on the piano. Gu Yang pushed open the door of the piano room and the first thing she saw was not the instruments all over the room, but Gu Jin sitting in front of the piano. The piano room was not lit and the curtains were tightly closed, making it somewhat dim. Wearing a black suspender dress, Gu Jin almost merged with the pitch-black piano. If it weren't for her arms and neck being so white and eye-catching, Gu Yang wouldn't have been able to see her at a glance. Gu Yang frowned, feeling that the environment was somewhat oppressive. So she walked over and opened the curtains, revealing the blue sky, white clouds, and green tree branches outside the window. The sunlight shone into the piano room, and the room lit up. Gu Jin looked up with a relaxed and lazy expression. Why? The boss's words were concise and clear, and his question seemed nonsensical, but Gu Yang understood. Gu Jin was asking why she gave up framing her last night and why she admitted this morning that she was a fake daughter. Of course, Gu Yang cannot say, "I'm in a book, you're all characters from novels. I know you're a big shot and can't afford to provoke you." Of course, no one will believe her. So he casually said, "I probably fell and corrected my values." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. What's wrong with hot searches? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. What's wrong with hot searches? Gu Yang observed Gu Jin and found that the big shot had no interest in this cold joke. Gu Jin's gaze fell on the skincare product in Gu Yang's hand, and then his gaze changed. He reached out and said, "Give me that skincare product." Gu Yang looked bewildered. The boss still needs a set of skincare products. Seeing Gu Yang hesitating, her phoenix eyes narrowed and she sneered softly, "Why, you can't even give me a set of skincare products? Is the status of the daughter of the Gu family willing to give it to me?" Gu Yang stared at Gu Jin and suddenly asked, "Sister, do you see that there is a problem with this skincare product set?" Gu Jin lightly stroked the slender fingers of the black and white piano keys, but his pitch-black eyes still couldn't see any waves. Although the big shot has almost no micro-expressions, she, who was a top international psychology expert before Tuan, has a strong sixth sense. Intuition can be described as precise. And intuition told her that she guessed right. That's right, the big shot even disdains the status of a wealthy family member. How could they miss this set of skincare products? She knew that the problem with this skincare product was because she remembered the plot of the novel, and the big shot could tell through the packaging that there was a problem with this skincare product. Gu Jin stood up and walked to the window, flipped over and sat by the window, looking out at the landscape of the villa garden. "Aren't you going to practice the piano?" Gu Yang looked at Gu Jin with inquiry and obediently sat in front of the piano. Oh. She remembers in the novel that the big shot didn't meddle and asked for skincare products from Wan Yen. Is it because the remedial measures she took have taken effect? Gu Yang's lips curved slightly. In the scorching summer, the sun shines brightly, and the branches outside the window cover the sky densely. The bright and sparkling sound of the piano flows lightly, even the cicadas between the branches and leaves are quiet. The sunlight penetrated through the cracks in the branches and fell on her face, casting sparse and scattered spots of light. Gu Jin's eyelashes twitched slightly, and the sunlight glared in her eyes. She raised her hand to cover it slightly, only to be surprised to find that she had just slept with the sound of cicadas on Gu Yang's piano. It seems like she hasn't slept so peacefully for a long time. Gu Yang finished playing a song casually before stopping. Her piano skills are not as good as her original, only at an amateur level, but perhaps because she often plays the piano for psychological therapy, her casual piano sound is also gentle and healing. At this moment, downstairs, Feng Ju, who was leaning against the window, slowly opened her eyes. Her clear and watery eyes seemed to have also been stained with the summer sunshine. It's like a beam of light shining into the deep abyss of the ice sheet. Gu Yang looked at Gu Jin. Although he was playing in front of the big shot, he also wanted to know the big shot's evaluation, so he asked, "Sister, how did I play?" Gu Jin gave her a gentle glance, jumped out of the window, and walked out of the piano room. His tone was lazy with a hint of drowsiness, and he said, "It's okay, practice more." Gu Yang. It was her own humiliation. That night, some people in the villa had a rare good sleep. In my sleep, cicadas chirp lightly, and the summer breeze is cool. The next day, Gu Yang was awakened by the continuous vibration of her phone. In her drowsy eyes, she opened the screen and realized that it was not an alarm clock, but rather a message bombardment from 99+ apps such as WeChat. There are even more than 10 missed calls. At this moment, there happened to be a call, and Gu Yang didn't see who it was before he clicked on it. The young man's slightly cold questioning voice came from the other end, "Gu Yang, what's going on the trending topics?" Although the sound was pleasant, the tone stirred up Gu Yang's waking anger. She hung up the phone directly, and only then did she notice that the caller's name was Xue Duo. On the other end of the phone, Xue Duo looked at the screen of his phone with some surprise. Gu Yang actually hung up on his phone. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Baby Kiss with the Xue Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Baby Kiss with the Xue Family. Xue Duo couldn't believe it and dialed the previous number again, but the number you dialed has been turned off. Gu Yang decisively shut down to catch up on sleep, waiting for her to wake up before saying anything. She stayed up all night the night when she first got dressed, so she slept until 11 o'clock. Coming out of the closet, Aunt Li told her, "Miss, the young Master Xue Duo and Mrs. Xue of the Xue family are here." Gu Yang vaguely remembered that she answered a phone call this morning, which was from Xue Duo. At that time, her consciousness was hazy, but now she remembered who Xue Duo was. The Xue family is also a wealthy family in Jincheng, and they are superior to the Gu family. When Gu Yang was not yet born, the Xue and Gu families verbally arranged for a baby marriage. And in recent years, the Gu and Xue families have indeed expressed interest in a commercial alliance. So, is Xue Duo her fiancé? No, to be precise, it should be Gu Jin's fiancé. In the novel, the original person has a good impression of Xue Duo. After learning about her false identity as a daughter, she feels that the Gu family is not as good as before and complains about her. Therefore, she tries her best to marry Xue Duo, even willing to betray the Gu family. In the end, the Gu family was destroyed and their property was also annexed by the Xue family. Of course, the Xue family's confrontation with the male and female leads to a bad ending. Gu Yang clicked on WeChat, slid down, glanced roughly, and was basically asking her about the hot topics. She opened Weibo and the first hot search item was, #the real and fake daughter of the Gu family in Jincheng's wealthy family #, secret of the rich family v. shocking. The rich family's dog blood, the fox cat trades for the crown prince. Zhaofeng Entertainment's little princess, the genius pianist Gu Yang, is actually a fake daughter who has been held wrong. And the real daughter has been left behind in a rural orphanage for 17 years. It is reported that the real daughter of the Gu family has been taken back, but the Gu group seems to have no intention of disclosing the identity of the real daughter. Is it to make a mistake? Pleasant Goat is proud. What a big melon. I feel the smell of conspiracy. Monster captured by Master. The fake golden dove has been occupying the magpie's nest for so many years, yet it still intends to continue to dominate their identity. What about their face? At least the Gu family is a wealthy family in Jincheng, are they also so confused? At Gu Group V at Zhaofeng Entertainment V, SCHRO Dinger's Dog V. Maybe the Gu family is preparing to make it public. Wait a minute. The secrets of a wealthy family are a big V who specializes in exposing the bloody events of a wealthy family. As long as there is evidence, they dare to reveal anything and have high credibility. Moreover, netizens are already interested in the affairs of wealthy families, and coupled with Zhaofeng Entertainment being one of the 4 major entertainment companies in China, it is often active on Weibo, so the popularity of this matter has been hyped up. If such a thing happens, the Gu family will definitely suppress the hot search, but this hot search has been posted now, indicating that someone behind it is fueling the situation. Gu Yang went downstairs in thought. Yang, come and see your Aunt Xue and Brother Xue duo. Wan Shuling asked Gu Yang to sit down. On the opposite sofa sat the mother and son. Gu Yang politely greeted them. Madame Xue nodded to Gu Yang, with a slightly elevated posture. As for Xue duo, he just sneered lightly without even looking at Gu Yang, with a haughty and contemptuous attitude. Wan Shuling has a hot temper, but the Gu family is a bit short in front of the Xue family. She also has to lower her posture and say, Madame Xue, although Yang is not my and Zhao Ming's biological child, she is still the daughter of our Gu family. Madame Xue interrupted Wan Shuling's words and said with a smile, Madame Gu, I also like Yang very much, but as you know, it is a marriage alliance between wealthy families that values blood status. To put it mildly, the actual meaning is that Gu Yang, a fake daughter, cannot even surpass the young master of their Xue family. Wan Shuling's face was ugly, and of course she knew it, so she didn't want to disclose the identities of Gu Jin and Gu Yang, and was also afraid that Gu Yang would lose her engagement with the Xue family. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Even if you want to win, you need to have a degree. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Even if you want to win, you need to have a degree. Besides, the Gu family incident has caused a stir online, and it seems bad to give the engagement that originally belonged to Gu Jin to Yang, right? Mrs. Xue's smile remained unchanged. Wan Shuling frowned slightly and said, so you want Gu Jin and Xue duo to get engaged. Yang is not worthy of Xue duo, so Gu Jin, a wild girl who grew up in the countryside, is worthy of Xue duo. Wan Shuling even suspected that the online incident was caused by Gu Jin, in order to steal Yang's identity and engagement. Mrs. Xue took a sip of her tea and said, the children are all in high school, so getting engaged is not urgent. I just came today to confirm on behalf of the Xue family whether what happened online is true. After all, this engagement was made by the old man at that time, so it cannot be ambiguous. By the way, didn't Gu Jin from your family bring him back? How could someone come and not know to come out and see him? Mrs. Xue's eyes were slightly disdainful. I heard that Gu Jin grew up in the countryside since childhood. In her opinion, it's not as good as Gu Yang, the adopted daughter. Speaking of Gu Jin, Wan Shuling's face became even more ugly. Xiao Jin left early in the morning. Mrs. Xue nodded, but didn't leave much. After a few pleasantries, she left with Xue duo. Xue duo didn't say a word from beginning to end, but before leaving, he frowned and glanced at Gu Yang, seeming somewhat displeased. Gu Yang. What? Besides hanging up on his phone, she didn't do anything to him, did she? Xue duo walked very slowly and kept looking at the chat interface with Gu Yang on WeChat. Seeing that until he left the Gu family villa, Gu Yang did not chase after him or send him a message, his mood couldn't help but feel a bit irritable. Didn't she like him? Playing hard to get also requires a certain degree of restraint. Why is she not in a hurry now that her engagement is about to end? Xue duo sneered, he wouldn't take the initiative to deal with Gu Yang. A few minutes later, Xue duo coldly sent a WeChat message to Gu Yang. Gu Yang, why did you hang up on my phone this morning? However, 1 minute past 2 minutes later, half an hour has passed, WeChat still hasn't replied, and even the message the other party is typing hasn't appeared. As soon as the Xue family mother and son left, Wan Shuling was so angry that she threw the tea set on the ground. After venting her frustration, she turned her head to Aunt Li and said, "Go and retrieve Gu Jin for me." Yang Yang kindly gave her the true daughter's identity, but she was so ignorant and even caused trouble online, causing Yang Yang to be raped online and even losing her engagement with the Xue family. Mom. Gu Yang held Wan Shuling's hand and handed her a cup of tea, his tone gentle, with a hint of softness that had just woken up. Mom, don't get angry and ruin your body. Upon hearing Gu Yang's voice, Wan Shuling's anger was also slightly calmed. She drank a sip of herbal tea handed over by Gu Yang to calm her liver, and looked at Gu Yang with worried eyes. Yang, don't read Weibo yet. Mom and Dad will handle these things well. On the Xue family side, Mom and Dad will also help you fight for this marriage. Gu Yang shook her head and said, Mom, no need, I don't like Xue duo. This marriage didn't belong to me either. Wan Shuling, however, did not believe it. Her daughter had always seen Xue duo's eyes full of love and couldn't hide it. Yang, there's no need for you to back down on this matter. I want to ask Gu Jin, where did he come from to steal his sister's fiancé A's face? Gu Yang wants to say that the big shots still don't like Xue duo. Gu Yang whispered softly, Mom, sister has just returned and doesn't even know about the marriage alliance between the Gu and Xue families. How could she plan to snatch the engagement? I have rewritten it and made changes to both the content and introduction. End of this chapter.